Good day. I'm here today with State Representative Danny Ryan. This is known as Spotlight on Chelsea, and I'm your host, Leo Robinson. We're going to talk about the election next week. I do have some questions to be able to ask the rep as to some of the issues that we're facing as a community. And being at the pandemic, it looks like we're in the third surge. How is this phase different or similar to the first outbreaks earlier in the year or even over the summer?
Right. Good morning, Leo. Hi, everybody sitting at home in Chelsea watching the television show here. Thank you. So here we are. Looks like we're heading into our third surge here in the epidemic since really about March, when the Secretary of State first started talking to people about on primary election day about social distancing, and at the time it wasn't even masks because we didn't really even have masks. They're telling people bring your own pen to the polls and everything else. Although we knew the virus was coming a little bit before then, I don't think we actually knew the extent of how to deal with it. What's different today is I think we've learned a lot in the last 6 or 7 months. Although the numbers are going up again, hospitalizations are down, deaths are down. There's a different, looks like, of course, nothing's certain, this thing changes every day too, but it looks like a different demographic is now being infected. They believe half of the new infections are people 30, and I think half, I'm not sure, but are people 30 and under. I think part of the reason with that is now that the society's opened back up, those are the folks that are probably more likely to go out and play, pick up basketball with their friends or hang out at a restaurant or be on a college campus. And also I think part of it was in the first wave of the pandemic, when we were testing, when we were limited with the amount of tests we had, we were testing people who were most vulnerable, older people, frontline workers, people with underlying conditions. And I think that also set a mindset that 30 and under group was sort of invincible too. It's, people, if they thought they were exposed, were being told at that time, if you're young and you're healthy, stay home and quarantine and you should be fine. And I think as the surge went on, I think that mindset kind of might have stuck a little bit. So we just, I think we just need to continue to educate and let people know that this is not just about you. You got to mask up. This is about who you're going to visit on Thanksgiving. This is about your grandparents and your nieces and nephews. And mask up, keep your distance. I think we've learned a lot. I think you see the surge nationally in rural states now, where I think when first it was in Massachusetts and New York City, it was very much an urban phenomenon. I think we saw that here in Chelsea, where people were living close together, people that were working on the front lines, people that had to take the MBTA were more susceptible. And now you see nationally the numbers going up. I was watching this morning, Wisconsin, which is partly rural, and then the big cities have big college campuses, so people should know better. And they're having numbers that we saw in April, which is really, you think we would have learned a lesson by now as a nation, but I guess maybe we haven't.
No, because in those states, they're running out of hospital beds.
Right.
They're running out of ventilators. And I think that, we've learned, that you do need to wear a mask. You need to be careful as to getting together with family, friends, and congregating and different things. And I think one of the things that has come out of this pandemic, and I think by necessity, was the opportunity to try some new methods of ballot access and expanding early voting and mail-in voting. What do you see as the pros and cons of these expanded methods of voting access?
Right, so I think it's gone fairly well. I know at least here in Massachusetts it has. In Boston, we had that one incident where somebody lit the ballot box on fire and 30 ballots got ruined. But that looked to me, I know they apprehended somebody on that, but that looked to me like just a random stupid act. I don't think it was any part of a political conspiracy or anything. I think we started doing the early voting, expanded early voting 4 years ago, and it seems to be going real well. I think the pandemic has made us, I think, for better. I think it's made us kind of look at our ballot access and try something new. And you know, there's always a little bit of glitch. Any election, you're going to have somebody that doesn't show up on the rolls that should have been. And but I think for the amount of people that are voting, it's worked really well, right? It's astronomical. I mean, we saw it in the September primary. It was the highest primary vote of a similar type of election that we've ever had in Massachusetts. The numbers were up everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think people are getting more used to it. I've talked to older, more traditional voters like myself. I kind of like to vote on election day. You know,
I do
you see
too.
your neighbors that you've always know they're going to be there working the polls. But I early voted this year, and we did it on Sunday. My intent was both me and my wife, we were just going to stand in the polls to let voters know we were out there, and then we just decided to go in and vote. It was easy, it was seamless. The kids voted with us, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, even on my walk over from City Hall over here to the studio today, people are lined up going in City Hall to vote, which I think has been really advantage for people who work and could have their day off on a certain day and still being able to come in.
yeah, it's kind of to change sort of the way, as an elected official or a candidate, you kind of look at it now, because usually you'd gear up for election day, and that was it.
Yeah.
And now election day, if this was to continue, I think it is. Even Governor Baker says he's looking to do something permanent around this. So now election day is starting to become like the end of it. So you know, it's really. So it's always, you know, now you're gearing up for an election week or 10 days, and then you know you have to get all your ballots in by election day or postmark, depending on what state you're in. So it will definitely change the way people campaign and everything too, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, my wife actually voted for the first time, and I brought her a ballot to the City Hall. I like going to the polls and being able to see the workers and seeing my neighbors and saying, hello to them. And it's just been, just been my tradition to do that, to be in contact with the people who I feel I represent as a government official. I think one of the things that is always going to be a tough situation here, and not only in our community, is the expiration of the eviction moratorium.
Right.
And do you foresee any major uptick in evictions?
So I haven't seen them yet, but housing has always been an issue in this district. I work on a ton of housing cases, even through when we had the eviction moratorium in place. We're working on people with their RAFT applications for rental assistance. I think we have good programs both here in Chelsea and in Boston to help people along the way. We need to staff up a little bit more on the rental assistance program. A lot of that money is funneled through nonprofits. And we just got to make sure that money is getting into the people's hands that need it. The moratorium, I wish we had passed. We have a good bill in the state legislature. It's a little bit longer term than the moratorium was. We did extend it once, the moratorium. I would like to see us pass that bill to give us a little bit of stability, give landlords and tenants a sense of stability. But Governor Baker has committed $171 million, I believe the number is. I don't think it's enough. Housing advocates don't think it's enough, but it's enough to get us to where we need to be until we can pass something more long term. There's some a federal moratorium now kicks into from the Center for Disease Control. I'm sure there's some loopholes in that because it's not written by Massachusetts people, nor more or less who understand these issues and care about it. But the important thing too is also the housing courts in letting people know that there are avenues here. And this is only just the moratorium ending just starts that process. And people need to know they can reach out to my office or to the great nonprofits that we have here that help tenants in Greater Boston Legal Services, and Chelsea has legal services here now too. So there are definitely ways for tenants to protect themselves, and they're not getting thrown out tomorrow morning.
No, actually, the city had hired a law group to help people, you know, with evictions or advocate situations that might happen with their landlord. You know, we don't want to see people get put out on the streets, and I think that we have to come to a happy medium in being able to work with the landlords, work with the tenants, get commitments on how we're going to move forward in addressing, you know, back rent, you know, maintaining our leases in these buildings. Now, without an additional stimulus package from the federal government, how do you see the state government stepping in to help with the economy and with unemployment?
Right, yeah. So again, unemployment is another issue my office has been working on since March. They were overwhelmed a little bit at the beginning. The unemployment numbers have come down, but they're still a little bit high. But we've had pretty good luck working with the state on both regular unemployment and the PUA unemployment, which I forget what that stands for now. But that's sort of the federal unemployment that captures people that are in the gap, don't necessarily fall on regular unemployment. We just passed a bill, the governor just signed a bill on Monday that the legislature had passed to give, it's a total of up to maybe $31 million, but it's to give people that fell into missed the federal incentive to get a few extra dollars in their pocket, some of our most needy residents. So that will help people out a little bit. We have, luckily, we have put away in our reserve funds, our rainy day fund, the most we could do. We had capped it out last year. So we're in a pretty good place to get by until next year. And we really need to wait and see what the federal government can do, because the federal government's the only ones that can do a stimulus package. They're really the only ones that can deficit spend. They don't have to meet a budget month to month like we're doing now.
Right.
But up till now, we've been working, both the Senate, the House, and the governor have been working well to just get our bills paid and keep our economy up and moving, or our government up and moving. The economy is still a little shaky, but I have faith that we'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, the city has stepped up in helping tenants, also helping homeowners, and also helping the businesses to be able to survive, you know, in these tough times that we're all facing.
Right, and the nonprofits stepping in like they did with this program to give everyone some basic income. You know, and the food.
And the food card.
The food cards, you know, so if somebody's helping you pay for your food, that's a few more dollars you can give to your landlord and buy some time and make a show of good faith. And there's a ton of good landlords out there too, and we got to protect them as well as the tenants.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to speak to some of the landlords, some of the larger landlords, and they don't want to lose their tenants. No. You know, they want to be able to work with them and make agreements so that, you know, they can survive also. It's not, you know, we need to protect each other as we move forward. But as we're moving ahead, what are your goals for next year in the next legislation session?
Right, so it's, you know, the COVID and the pandemic have really been the focus going forward. So that being said, that's also going to cause some problems with the budget and the economy. Well, the problems with the economy is going to cause problems with the budget. That being said, I think we also have the dynamic of equity in trying to take care of our poorer cities and towns, in our poorer populations. We've been chipping away at that, but I think the pandemic and some of the other national racial issues have showed how much more urgent this is than just chipping away. And I think that will be the focus moving forward, that we have this notion of trying to get to yes in the legislature, and when we do things like school funding, we take care of all communities sort of equally, but enough so people are on board.
Board.
But I think now it's quite evident that just getting people on board is not enough, that we really need to help the communities that need it the most. They can't necessarily generate revenue within their own municipality or town. So I think that's going to be a focus going forward.
Yeah, because as I know, you have 2 children at home that you're homeschooling.
Right.
And how tough that
Might have
is.
been them buzzing in right there.
And how tough it is to, juggle that aspect. And,
Right.
if you're a working parent and you have kids and you got to go to work and they're home trying to engage on their own, or somebody coming in to help them, engage.
Right.
And we all know that education is important
Right.
to be able to, learn and grow as individuals.
And those are the folks that are most vulnerable, most not able to work from home, are the people who work for an hourly wage, your lower wage earners, or blue collar workers that even might be making pretty good amount of money. Those are the type of jobs you can't do at home. If you're in the plumbers union or the painters union, you can't, lay pipe if you're sitting home homeschooling, or building buildings, and that's still going on. There's still construction work being done. There's still people driving buses, and those are folks that can't sit at home on a laptop and do that from home. So.
Yeah. I guess one of, the predictions for November, as Tip O'Neill used to say, all politics are local.
Right.
But we have such a major national campaign going on. I don't know if you want to comment on any of the issues that we're facing nationally.
Yeah, well, I think after 4 years ago, I think people are very cautious about polls and to not overbelieve the polls. But I also believe the polls last year weren't wrong. What happens a lot of times is you can't predict turnout. And turnout in the states where the Democrats should have won was low. That doesn't look like it's a problem this year. Of course, you can't tell by the amount of early votes how the people voted, but the demographics look like turnout will not be a problem for Democrats this year. It looks like there's a high turnout in the states where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris need high turnout. It looks good, but I thought it looked good 4 years ago too. So who knows? And it looks like we have a very good chance of winning back the House and the Senate. We meaning, I'm a Democrat, so I'm supporting the Democratic ticket straight down the line. And that also, coming from Massachusetts, we think that's great. We'll take control, but we also, when we get there, we can't push that far. And I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact up here that the National Democratic Party, too, a lot of the Democrats that looks like will beat Republicans aren't necessarily our progressive Democrats that we're used to seeing up here. Some will be, but not all of them. Some of them will be middle of the road, middle America Democrats. So,
well, I think if we keep the focus on working and making sure that the people in this country are being taken care of and developing programs and concerns to address those issues, it makes us for a better country. And I think the state has stepped up to address some of those issues. The cities have stepped up to do some of those. My colleagues on the council have voted for a lot of the incentives that city manager has put forward and the community development has put forward. You are on the ballot next week.
right.
Is there anything you would like to say to the voters?
Yeah, just I would love to have your support and your vote. I thank you very much for your support in September and sending me back to the state legislature to represent Chelsea again for 2 more years. And hopefully I'll see you on Election Day for those of you who haven't voted yet. And I'll probably poke my head in around for some early voting too. So, but I'll be wearing my mask and I'll be keeping my distance. So if I don't shake your hand, please don't be offended, but I would love your support.
Well, that's great. First of all, I'd like to thank you for being here with me today. Spotlight on Chelsea. I think it's important that the voters get an opportunity to hear you and see you. I know that you're always around the city, talking to people and doing things, and it's, and I think that's a very important aspect of being a public official.
Thank you, Leo.
So I'd like to say once again, thank you, and I'd like to thank Ricky and Paula, which is a great team at Chelsea Community Cable. They do an outstanding job, and I know that Ricky has been put to the test because of webcam and Zoom
Sure.
and Facebook and Instagram. So he's juggling all these balls, and I just want to say, Rick, you've done an outstanding job, and me personally, I want to thank you and making sure that the people in the community have access to what's going on in the city. And once again, thank you, Dan, and good luck next week.
Thank you, Leo. Thanks for the opportunity.